In the 4th year of my marriage to Charlie, he sent me to prison himself. Before going to prison, he told me, if you do something wrong, you must accept the punishment. I hope you'll learn your lesson after this. Later, my face was disfigured and my legs were lame, and I really became a very obedient person as he wished. But he began to beg me with red eyes, asking if I could love him as before. On the day I was released from prison, it snowed heavily outside. The prison guard who escorted me was a girl in her 20s. After a series of procedures, the prison door was finally opened. What about the family members? I pursed my lips and said nothing. She didn't mind it, but patted my shoulder and said softly, "Your husband has come many times in these 3 years. You can see that he cares about you very much." The prison guards didn't know that the person who sent me to prison was my husband Charlie. That's why I say the word care. But it does make sense. He does care about me. Don't care when I die. 3 years ago, I stabbed Emma. She is Charlie's first love, the one he holds dearest in his heart. If he hadn't arrived in time, I might stab her a second time, a third time, until she's dead. I still remember that Charlie's face was pale and he held Emma in his arms. He covered Emma's wound, his tone more tense than ever before. "Emma, you'll be fine, the doctor will be here soon." Emma was like a fish out of water. When she looked at me, her whole body suddenly became stiff. "Charlie. I'm so scared." Charlie followed her line of sight and saw me standing not far away. "Amy, I won't let you go." When I heard this, I was surprisingly calm and even used my hands to wipe the blood off my face. As expected. Charlie would never stand by me. I hurt Emma, and he's going to make me pay. The setting sun mixed with blood sank into the horizon. Then a long alarm sounded in my ears. I was sentenced to 3 years. The judge asked me why I stabbed someone. I just said, "She killed the dog." No one knows who dog is. Except Charlie. He stood up suddenly. "Amy, are you crazy? Are you going to kill someone for a dog?" Charlie thought I was unreasonable from the beginning to the end. I looked at his furious expression and felt only irony. He doesn't understand what the dog means to me. It's no ordinary puppy. It's my family. I picked it up from the garbage dump 4 years ago. Give it a bath, feed it, and take it to the hospital for treatment. It accompanied me through those lonely days. It's the only one in the world that loves me. I will never forget what the dog looked like that day. She was thin and small, lying in my arms without moving. I curled my lips in self-mockery. "Charlie, you know nothing at all." Charlie's expression froze for a moment, but he quickly returned to normal. "Amy, it's just a dog, you are so willful. If you do something wrong, you must accept the punishment. I hope you'll learn your lesson after this." In fact, during the first few nights after I entered prison, I would always dream about Emma's horrible face. I dreamed that she told me about the death of the dog in my ear. "That beast is just as despicable as you. He clearly has no ability, but he always pretends to be aggressive. He is really disobedient." I had no choice but to hang it up and scald it with boiling water over and over again. I didn't let it go until it could no longer bark. Who knew that it couldn't stand the torture so much? After just a few plays, its whole body was convulsing, kicking its legs, and it died. "I'm so sorry, Miss Amy. I do not understand. The dog is so good. It never bites anyone randomly. Everybody liked it very much. If you have any grievances, come to me. Is that not okay? Why kill the dog?" During those days, hatred almost filled my entire body and mind. I began to regret it. I regretted why I didn't just slit her throat or stab her heart with the knife. She would definitely not survive this. But gradually, I no longer had time to think about those things. Because I was beaten every day, there was no good place left on my body. I am busy every day. Busy trying to please the big sister in prison. Busy being their lapdog. Busy thinking about how to get less beaten. This kind of day lasted for a long time. I forgot when they stopped beating me. Maybe they found it boring, or maybe there were some other reasons. I have no idea. I just remember that I almost cried with joy that night when they didn't take my quilt away. At that moment, I suddenly realized that I hadn't thought about the past for a long time. "Amy, when you get out, keep moving forward and don't look back." These were the last words the prison guard said to me. After saying goodbye to her, I dragged my injured leg and slowly walked out the door. I didn't tell Charlie that I was released from prison today. Because I'm scared. It wasn't just because of the beating. During my 2nd year in prison, a fire broke out. I am both unfortunate and lucky. Unfortunately, I was trapped in the fire and became disfigured and lame. Fortunately, the firefighters did not give up on me and rescued me at the risk of their own lives. It was no accident that I was trapped in the fire. Because I clearly felt someone pushed me. That's why I fell to the ground and my legs were crushed by the heavy object. It's hard not to think about it. I hurt Emma, and maybe he doesn't want to let me off so easily. To stay alive, I had to stay away from Charlie. After all, he never loved me. He married me only out of profit. On our wedding night, when he took possession of my body, the unexpected word Emma from his mouth was enough to explain it all. That night, the moonlight shone through the window and reflected on the torn wedding dress. A silvery white ground was left behind, and along with it, my childhood dreams were also shattered. I don't want anything to do with Charlie anymore. So I absolutely cannot go back to Charlie's family. I got on the bus outside the prison gate and looked at the scenery outside the window board. It wasn't until the driver reminded me that we had reached the terminal that I came to my senses. It is far from the city center and people's living standards are generally low. The noisy vegetable market is mixed with the slightest smell of fireworks. It seems that you don't need background, education, or family background to make a living here. It seems that as long as you are willing to work hard, you can survive. I suddenly felt that this was a good place to live. There is a breakfast shop at the entrance of the market, hiring long-term workers. I start work at 3 in the morning and get off work at 11 in the morning. $2,800 a month. I went to apply for the job with great joy, but when the boss lady saw the burn scars on my face, she hesitated. I hurriedly took out the mask from my pocket and put it on. I will cover it and will not scare the guests. The store must be very short of staff, and even though I had some difficulty walking, the boss lady still accepted me. Then I rented another house. Although it was only 20 square meters, the rent was cheap. However, just as I was about to leave, I heard a conversation between other tenants and the landlord. Have you seen the news today? The president of Charlie family issued a missing person notice, looking for his wife who just got out of prison. The landlord covered his mouth in disbelief. Huh? The tenant continued, this president is really handsome and affectionate. But then again, why is his wife in jail? I subconsciously wore the mask on my face tighter. I didn't dare to listen to the rest of the words and closed the door. At night, I tossed and turned on my creaking wooden bed. I'm a little confused about Charlie now. I've been to jail. Why won't he let me go? I began to pick my fingers unconsciously, and my thoughts somehow drifted back to the past. Charlie and I have known each other since childhood. I like him. I liked it a long time ago. Adults often say that this is our first love, and I am going to be Charlie's wife in the future. Charlie's family and Amy's family have always been partners in business. Marriages between wealthy families are no longer a rare thing. Both sets of parents were tacitly aware of our marriage. But I really like him. I like the way he looks when he bends down and listens to me seriously. I like his beautiful dimples when he smiles. I like the sight of him taking me to skip classes. I like the rebelliousness in his peach blossom eyes when he fights for me. I thought he liked me too. Until Emma appeared. She is the only poor student in our class. She had her hair tied in a high ponytail and was wearing a white dress that had turned yellow from washing. She is serious and studious, and she is beautiful and kind. Everyone likes her very much. Including Charlie. That was the first time I saw love in Charlie's eyes. He'll race for Emma and others. I will make chocolate for Emma myself. I am no longer by his side. Only Emma. But I don't like her. Because I once saw her being pretentious and fawning on the hooligans at the school gate. It was in stark contrast to her usual cold and aloof personality. When I told Charlie about this, he gave me a cold shoulder, which was unusual for him. Amy, I always thought you were a good girl, although you were willful. I didn't expect that you were like those people and doubted Emma. Amy. He never called me Amy before. I feel like Charlie is getting further and further away from me. I'm not the kind of person who has to pester others. Charlie likes Emma, and I can help him. So after the college entrance examination, I applied to a university in another city. I began to adapt to life without Charlie and put all my energy into studying. Those days were peaceful and fulfilling. At that time, I thought it would be nice if I could live an ordinary life like this. But God always likes to play jokes on people. During my sophomore year, my parents died in a car accident. It was the first time I realized that people don't shed tears when they are extremely sad. Regurgitation, loss of voice, tinnitus, and cold limbs. I watched the mourners like a puppet. Most of them probably feel sorry for me or feel sorry for me. I can't tell who is real and who is fake. Just when I was about to collapse from exhaustion, someone suddenly pulled me into his arms. It's Charlie. I haven't seen him for a long time. His eyes were red and his voice was trembling. Amy, don't be afraid, I'm here. He was the first person to worry that I might be scared since my parents' accident. For a moment, he and I seemed to have returned to our youth. Back to the days without Emma. He was very nice to me at that time. In a trance, he was still the Charlie who fought for me and took me to skip classes. Charlie, from now on, I'll be alone. I leaned into his arms, tears streaming down my face. After my parents passed away, I had to learn to take over Amy's family. Those people on the board of directors are tough nut to crack and they simply don't submit to my leadership. They thought I had no ability at all. In fact, it is true. I did not graduate from college. I have never interned in a company and most of the time I am just a layman. But I can't hand Amy's family over to these people. They all wanted to make money and even forced me to sell the brand I had been running for many years. Doing so would undoubtedly destroy my parents' hard work. When I was at my wit's end, Charlie's father found me. He told me that as long as Charlie and Amy's two families were married, those people would not dare to act rashly. Charlie's father is a businessman and he never does business that will lose money. Marriage can help me get out of trouble and it can also help Charlie's family move to a higher level. But this is not fair to Charlie. The person he likes is Emma. Perhaps seeing my concerns, Charlie's father added. The one called Emma has gone abroad. Charlie agreed to the marriage. You are all grown up and should know what to do and what not to do. Charlie's father's meaning was very clear. People like us shouldn't talk about love and romance. Everything should be based on the interests of the family first. That's how Charlie and I got married. In this marriage full of conflicts of interest, we each get what we need. I don't know how much of the love of youth is left. Maybe he really felt sorry for me when my parents passed away. But when Emma left, he probably still blamed me. But life has to go on. I understand this, and Charlie understands it too. That's why he would hug me and say to me late at night when he was in a state of confusion and passion. Amy, let's live a good life from now on. I think he should have accepted his fate. I began to work hard to be a good wife. Charlie is very afraid of the dark, so the house is always brightly lit when he goes to bed at night. There was no night light on the path from the garage to the front door, so I would pick him up there every night. Then I took his hand and went home together. The dog found it among the flowers on that path. It was covered in dirt, and its obsidian eyes stared at me intently. I held it in my arms and calmed it down. It is very well behaved and will rub its head against my clothes from time to time. I ignored the impatience in Charlie's eyes and took the dog home. Goozy and I are both children without parents. I failed to protect it and lost it. I didn't know that Emma would return to China 4 years later. And since she came back, Charlie rarely came home. I waited at the door every day, but I never saw him, not even a text message. Occasionally, when I come back, I still smell of some unknown perfume. I don't know who it belongs to, but it's definitely not his. One night, he texted me and said he was drunk and asked me to pick him up. When I pushed open the door of the box, I saw him pushing Emma against the wall and kissing her passionately. Charlie lost control and they kissed passionately. I heard him complaining. Why, it can't be you who marries me. I closed the door of the box numbly, as if I had never been there. At that moment, I suddenly realized clearly that I no longer loved Charlie. Charlie didn't mention divorce to me. Even if Emma returned to China, even if Emma expressed her love to him, he would not ask for a divorce from me. As usual, he was struggling to maintain this suffocating marriage. Even if Emma made a fool of herself at the charity dinner, he would not speak for her. Because he is Charlie. But I didn't expect Emma would go to such lengths to hurt the dog. She deliberately provoked me in order to make me do something and put me in jail. She is very smart. She knew Charlie's family wouldn't want a woman who had been in prison. I thought I could have a good sleep after I got out of prison. I didn't expect that I still suffered from insomnia. At 2:30 in the morning, after washing up, I went to work at the breakfast shop. The boss lady disliked my ugly gait and only allowed me to wash dishes in the kitchen. Fortunately, I am hardworking and never complain, so the boss's wife is quite satisfied with me. Except for the fact that I had to report going to the toilet. She was very annoyed. If you want to go to the toilet, just go by yourself, don't report it, the guests will laugh at you if they hear it. I nodded awkwardly. Next time, I still can't help it. This is a habit I developed in prison, reporting when going to the toilet. It can't be changed in a short time. I did all the dirty work in the store because I wanted to keep myself busy. Because once I stop, I will become dazed and pick my fingers until they bleed. This is really not like a normal person. No one would have thought that the once glamorous Miss Amy would now be a poor dishwasher. But this seems to be my fate. I met Charlie again half a month later. I should have thought that with his career now flourishing, it would be easy for him to find someone. When I got off work that day at noon, a black private car followed me. The faster I walk, the faster it goes. I slow down, and it slows down too. I stopped suddenly, and it quickly braked, blocking my way. Finally, the car door opened and a tall man in a black suit got out. Those familiar peach blossom eyes made my hands and feet feel a little cold. I didn't look at him again and kept walking. But just as they were about to pass each other, her wrist was suddenly grabbed tightly by him. I struggled, but the strength gap between men and women was too great. When he tried to touch the scar on my face with trembling hands, I turned my head away. After a long while, his eyes turned red and his voice choked. "Amy, come home with me, okay?" I still couldn't hold back the disgust in my heart and looked at him sarcastically. Charlie's raised hand suddenly froze in midair, looking somewhat at a loss. "Amy, why didn't you tell me you were released from prison?" I almost vomited when I heard him say these words seriously. "Notify you and then wait for you to continue to retaliate against me?" I didn't say anything, just listened to his narration quietly. "Amy, I know you blame me, but you made a mistake and broke the law, so you must accept the punishment. This matter has passed. Let's start over again. Come back with me and I will take good care of you." I lowered my head and stopped looking at him. The confrontation ended with me ignoring it. The cold winter wind makes people's bones ache. Finally, Charlie gave in and let go of my hand. "Amy, I'll see you tomorrow." Charlie didn't leave. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I saw his car parked downstairs. There is no moon on a winter night. The strong wind outside the window sounded like a mournful roar, making one's heart tremble. I couldn't help but feel a chill in my heart. The alarm clock rang again, and I couldn't sleep again tonight. The next day, I went to work at the breakfast shop as usual, and Charlie followed me. I still didn't talk to him, and I ignored all his tentative questions and concerns. I treated him like air and left him aside. I thought this would make him leave. But I was wrong. Charlie now is like a dogskin plaster that can't be gotten rid of. I don't want to admit it, but I was indeed affected by Charlie's appearance. I talk less and less, and I daydream more and more. One morning while washing dishes, my mind wandered. He picked his fingers unconsciously, and bright red blood stained the bowl. The boss started to curse. "It would be fine if you just report to go to the toilet normally, but today you even got your blood on my bowl. He is so ugly and can't work properly. He is so disgusting." Just when I thought I would be kicked out of the restaurant in the next second, a figure blocked my way. "Who do you think you are to call me Amy?" There was a sinister flash in Charlie's eyes, a sign that he was about to get angry. The proprietress wanted to say something else, but when she noticed Charlie's luxury car parked outside, she immediately changed her attitude. She took my hand and pretended to care for me. "Amy, that's not what I meant. I was just anxious and my hand was injured. I'll go home and rest first. Don't worry about the store's affairs for now." I pulled away the hand that the proprietress was holding with an expressionless face and limped out of the breakfast shop. "I know I can't do this job anymore." Charlie chased out. No, it can't be called chasing to be precise. Because I had difficulty moving, he easily blocked my way by just taking a few quick steps. I think he's a little unreasonable. He is the one who loves Emma. He is the one who is entangled with me now. "Amy, you shouldn't work there. I will take you to see a doctor and cure your leg. If it doesn't work in China, we will go abroad. And your face will be healed. Even if it can't be cured, it doesn't matter. No matter what happens, I will be with you. Amy, we are not divorced yet and you are still my wife." Charlie grabbed my wrist and spouted off a bunch of nonsense that I didn't want to hear. I shook him off and took a few steps back quickly. She looked at the places he touched with disgust. Charlie closed his eyes helplessly. After a while, he seemed to have made up his mind and said with difficulty, "Amy, the old house of Amy's family is in my hands. I will return it to you as long as you promise to go back with me." I was stunned. The old house Charlie mentioned is the home I have lived in for 20 years. 3 years ago, because of my imprisonment, Amy's family's stock price plummeted and the company faced bankruptcy. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. All the rich kids who were usually on good terms with me now turned away from me. Even Charlie's family stood by and watched. In desperation, I had to agree to sell Amy's family's old house to pay the employees' last wages. The person who bought the old house was my father's friend, and he promised me that he would not sell it or renovate it. "I can buy it back anytime as long as I have money." I also once fantasized about working hard to rebuild Amy's family and take back the old house. But this seems to have become a pipe dream. I've been in jail and no company wants me. After I was released from prison, I went to inquire about it. The result was that the buyer sold the house and moved abroad. I didn't expect it to be Charlie. You see, I thought I would be free once I got out of jail. No more humiliating days. But apparently not. I still can't live the way I want. Charlie, these were the first words I said to Charlie after I was released from prison. He was like a child who got candy, his eyes lit up. But the next second, my words extinguished all his hopes. Can't you just let me go? I didn't look at his reaction. I don't know when, Charlie pulled me into his arms. He held me very tightly, afraid that if he let go, I would run away. Amy, I have no choice, I really can't live without you. You haven't accepted my visits for the past 3 years, and I'm almost driven crazy. I know you hate me, and I will spend my whole life making it up to you, believe me, okay? Charlie talked a lot. But I didn't hear a word he said. I got into Charlie's car numbly. The increasingly familiar roads outside the window made me feel a little dazed. Oh God, I haven't done anything bad, why are you torturing me like this? Charlie took me back to Huashi Villa. That's where we lived for 3 years. As soon as I got off the bus, I saw Emma. She was wearing an expensive Valentino dress and was looking me up and down without any concealment. After seeing the scars on my face, the contempt in his eyes was evident. She walked up to Charlie, took his arm, and said with a smile, "Charlie, I finally meet you." Charlie said nothing, but took a few steps back, putting some distance between him and Emma. The woman's face turned a little ugly. "Charlie, how did you bring her here? She once wanted to kill me. I get scared when I see her. Can you please let her go?" Charlie frowned slightly, looking a little unhappy. "Don't mention the past anymore. Amy is my wife. Always." To be fair, if it were in the past, I would have been so happy that I would have lost my mind if I heard Charlie say this. But now, I just feel my stomach churning, as if I am going to vomit. Emma obviously couldn't stand such a blow, and her arrogance just now disappeared completely. There were sparkling tears in her eyes, which seemed about to fall, making her look very adorable. "What about me? Charlie, didn't you say before that you had to marry Amy? Didn't you say that in your eyes she is your sister?" Charlie pondered for a moment, as if recalling the past, with a look of regret. "Emma, I couldn't see my own heart clearly in the past. In fact, the person I truly loved has always been Amy. We grew up together and lived together for many years, and she has long been in my heart. I have been in pain during these 3 years that she has been away, and this pain is completely different from the pain I felt when you left me. This kind of pain is heart-wrenching. I regret sending her to jail." Charlie's affectionate confession made me surprisingly calm. At one point, I even thought he was childish and wanted to teach him some legal knowledge. I wanted to tell him that I went to jail because I broke the law. Whether he regretted it or not, it had no impact. The procedures for transferring the old house are somewhat complicated. Charlie said he would handle it and asked me to wait a few days. He also said that Emma would not appear in Huashi, so I could stay there without worry. I never believed what he said. Because at this moment, Emma has come to me. "Amy, you are in this state now, why are you still pestering Charlie?" Emma wiped away her tears and looked superior. "Are you sick?" I couldn't help but sneer out loud. "Just because you treat Charlie as a treasure, do you think everyone in the world treats him as a treasure? I sincerely wish you two, this scumbag and this bitch, to be locked up together." Emma's eyes widened suddenly, with anger that could not be hidden. "Amy, why do you speak so harshly?" I shook my head helplessly. "Emma, I just cursed at you a few times, and you can't stand it? Don't worry, all I can do is scold you here. I just hate that I don't have the ability to make you pay the price." Looking at her deflated face, I really wanted to laugh out loud. But I can't laugh. I was afraid that I would burst into tears uncontrollably while laughing. That would be so embarrassing. I kicked Emma out. Before leaving, she said to me fiercely, "Amy, don't be so proud. I'll make you pay." Emma said she would make me pay. But I didn't expect the price to come so quickly. When I arrived at the old house, most of it had been engulfed in flames. Thick smoke billowed into the sky, and the air was filled with a suffocating, pungent smell. Tears fell and mixed into the soil. I saw Emma coming out from the corner. "Amy, this is what happens when you cross me. Whether it's that dog or this house, I won't let it go. She seems crazy. It took years of hard work to get to where we are today. After this incident, she lost everything. But I think she's going to drive me crazy, too." The urge to kill her came back again. I stood up and grabbed her neck violently, almost strangling her to death. She was so scared that she used all her strength to push me away, covering her neck and gasping for breath. She staggered and then scrambled away. She pushed me to the ground, and my forehead hit the stone, bleeding profusely. But I seemed not to feel any pain at all. I picked up a stone on the ground and threw it at her hard. Just when I thought she was going to be hit by me, Charlie suddenly appeared and protected her behind him. He even risked his life to protect Emma. "Amy, you are bleeding. I will take you to the hospital." Charlie was hit hard by me and he coughed several times, his face turning red. Tears blurred my vision, obscuring everything in front of me. I raised my foot and almost rushed into the fire. That's all. I have nothing left. Mom and Dad, what should I do? I couldn't help but collapse, fell to the ground, and lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. Charlie, he let Emma go. He said he owed Emma his life and there was nothing he could do. Amy, when I got into trouble and was trapped in an alley by a group of thugs, it was Emma who saved me. She was raped by those people and suffered from severe depression. It was not easy for her to survive. I owe her this. I turned sideways, looked at the painful expression of the person in front of me, and said sarcastically, "Should I pay back what you owe her?" Charlie's eyes were red, and he hurriedly explained to me, "Amy, Emma and I are clear. It's over between us. From now on, it's just the two of us. I beg you, please still love me as before, okay? Clear both sides? Finish? You wish. The game has clearly just begun." I gently grabbed Charlie's hand and said softly, "Okay." After being discharged from the hospital, I told Charlie that I wanted to find a job. He brought me into his company without saying a word. Of course I am happy to do so. Because Charlie is indeed a very good teacher, I can learn a lot from him. I always act in admiration when he teaches me. It's just like how I was infatuated with him when I was young. He likes it very much. He would always explain a point of knowledge to me many times without getting tired of it. See me go from being confused to being clear-headed. He said he enjoyed the sense of accomplishment. This also made me understand that when Amy's family went bankrupt, in addition to the impact of my imprisonment, another big reason is management problems. I began to absorb knowledge like crazy. As for whether other people in the company will look at me strangely, it doesn't matter. Let them be, they can't hurt me anyway. I grew up very fast. Charlie always takes me with him on business trips, to different countries, and to meet different people. Gradually, I went from being a person out of touch with society to a project manager for a listed company. Such rapid growth attracted the attention of Charlie's father. In fact, I haven't seen him since I was released from prison. Charlie said his father retired. In my opinion, no. His father still holds the real power in the company. Otherwise you wouldn't have found me so quickly. When I got into trouble 3 years ago, he rushed to issue a statement to distance himself from the matter. He said that Charlie's family would never shield criminals and that they would compensate Emma. It's simply because they are afraid that Amy's family's misfortune will implicate Charlie's family. He was cautious and took every step carefully and finally got what he wanted. Today, the Charlie family has become a leader in the industry. He wanted me to leave Charlie's family. "Amy, your presence will affect Charlie." I told Charlie about this. In the evening, I held his hand and walked on the path back to Washi Villa. Charlie is afraid of the dark, and every time he passes this unlit road, he will unconsciously hold my hand tightly. This time, I let go of his hand. He was very keenly aware of this change. "Amy, what's wrong?" I looked up and looked at him with eyes full of tears. He was very concerned about my emotions and suddenly became a little nervous. "Amy, don't cry, tell me, what's wrong?" I told him, with exaggeration, the story of how his father had driven me away. "Charlie, are you going to kick me out?" He held me in his arms, caressing my back with his big hands, and said in a firm voice, "No, no one can drive you away." Charlie went against his father's wishes. Not only did he keep me, he also said he wanted to hold a new wedding. They had a big fight over this. Love me much? Not necessarily. He simply rediscovered the joy of resistance. The reason why he was so obsessed with Emma was simply because he was too depressed in his life under his father's control. The appearance of Emma was like a spice, allowing him to rebel against his father a little. This kind of rebellion had an appeal to him like opium. Charlie doesn't love Emma, it's just that ridiculous life-saving grace made him mistakenly think it is love. He felt it was great to resist for love. But people are happiest when they are infinitely close to happiness. When he was with Emma, that feeling disappeared. Once first love is pulled into the secular world, it will become dim. Charlie and I grew up together, and all our feelings are real. He is not stupid, so he can naturally feel my hot and burning love. But during the 3 years in prison, this love disappeared. If something that originally belonged to him is lost, he will miss it and think about it. My goodness continued to deepen in his impression. What I want to do is to let this feeling leave a mark in his heart. I started talking to him about the past. Charlie is afraid of the dark because when he was a child he was locked in the basement by his father's lover for 2 days and 2 nights. At that time, no one cared about his life or death except me. I noticed he was missing and followed the woman. I told him, I was actually afraid at that time, afraid that the crazy woman would do something to me. But whenever I think of you, I'm not afraid of anything. Charlie seemed to be really touched and kissed my forehead with true feelings. Amy, I love you, you are the best to me in this world. I closed my eyes, hid my emotions, and pretended to be happy. I suddenly remembered how passionate he was about Emma. Now the situation is reversed. Emma may never understand until her death why Charlie suddenly stopped loving her. This man is just a cheapskate. Always craving what you can't have. Charlie attaches great importance to this wedding. The venue alone changed several times. I specifically chose one of his busiest days to meet someone. Kevin. He was the thug who beat up Charlie. He is also Emma's ex-boyfriend. I had my suspicions ever since Charlie mentioned that Emma had saved him. I know Emma gets along well with those hooligans at the school gate. He who keeps company with vermilion becomes red, and he who keeps company with ink becomes black. I would never believe that she is a brave person. Sure enough, I just put in a little effort and understood the whole picture. Emma and Kevin were just putting on a show to get some benefits from Charlie. Emma threatened to commit suicide and begged Charlie not to tell anyone. The matter was thus revealed in an unclear manner. Later, Emma went abroad with Kevin with the money given by Charlie's father. But it didn't take long for Kevin's true nature to be exposed. Not only did he spend money recklessly, he also beat Emma. Emma couldn't stand it anymore and abandoned Kevin and returned home secretly. What Emma didn't expect was that Charlie still missed her even after getting married. She began to regret it and even wanted to marry Charlie. But this is understandable. The man in front of me was ugly and vulgar. When talking about Emma, his facial expression was extremely ferocious. Emma, this bitch, actually dared to be so smart as to abandon me. Now you have to stay at home and serve me obediently. This kind of woman deserves a beating. She always dreams of becoming a phoenix by marrying into a wealthy family. Emma is also unlucky. After being forcibly sent back to his hometown by Charlie, he ran into Kevin. I heard that Kevin treated her like a servant and beat and scolded her. I guess Emma also hates it in her heart. I asked Kevin not to let Emma go to Charlie and I's wedding to disrupt it. Charlie sometimes thinks of Emma and says he wants to give her some money as compensation. I'm worried, so I beg you to keep an eye on her. I looked like a humble woman who was afraid that her husband would be taken away. Kevin's expression was somewhat disdainful. But after hearing the word money, his attitude immediately changed and he said yes, repeatedly. However, the greed in his eyes betrayed him. On the wedding day, Charlie invited almost all the important people in the city. I was wearing a white wedding dress and looking at the beautiful face in the mirror, feeling a little dazed. Charlie took me to see a doctor, and although it was a bit painful, fortunately the effect was good. To this day, there is no trace of injury on his face. Charlie hugged my body from behind and rested his head on my neck. Amy, I am so happy, how about you? I also smiled and nodded, acting shy. This is really not a lie. I feel very happy too. Especially the moment I saw Emma after the wedding started. She must have suffered a lot, her face was pale and she was so thin that she was just skin and bones. I know Kevin won't let Emma out easily. So, I want Kevin to know. Emma still has value and the potential to create money. Given Kevin's character, he will definitely seize this opportunity. I am very satisfied with the current result. Emma, this crazy woman, lived up to expectations. He rushed towards me with a fruit knife. Unfortunately, I had already made sufficient preparations. When she was about to reach me, quickly hid behind Charlie. Charlie was beyond my expectation. Even though he had been stabbed, he still held me tightly in his arms. By the time everyone reacted, Charlie was almost fainted. Charlie. I feel like I'm devoting all my life's acting skills to this. The tears never stopped from beginning to end. Emma was taken away by the police. Given Charlie's father's personality, he will not let this woman go easily. Of course, I don't need to worry about these anymore. After all, my good husband is still in the hospital. Charlie is in a bad condition. Because the wound was too deep, he was lying in bed unable to move. I really didn't want to take care of her, so I pretended to be heartbroken and fainted from crying. After Charlie found out, he still regretted making me worry. But I can't always avoid seeing him. If necessary, you still have to go. After I learned that Emma's matter was completely over, I went to Charlie. He was surprised to see me and coughed several times because he was so excited. Just as I was about to sit down, his face changed. Amy, get out. This change left me a little confused. Just when I thought he was in a bad mood, a strange smell suddenly filled the air. I squatted down to check and found that Charlie was leaking urine. He was so ashamed that he turned his head away and stopped looking at me. I didn't mind, I just held his wrist and said softly, "Charlie, don't worry, no matter what you become, I will always be with you." These words were not spoken to Charlie, but to his father outside the door. I need to make him understand my sincerity so that he will be willing to let me stay in the company. Charlie's father is old and he will have to retire eventually. There is no other choice for the heir except Charlie. But now Charlie is no longer able to do so, and he needs to find someone who can treat Charlie sincerely. Apparently, I met his requirements. During the time Charlie was ill, I took over all of his work. I completed several large projects very well. Not only that, I overhauled the company and introduced new technologies. At first, the board of directors was dissatisfied, but later they made money. Once the benefits are shared, these voices will disappear. Gradually, everyone adapted to my management style. A year later, Charlie returned to the company and everything had changed. His way of doing things is no longer suitable. What matters most is his emotions. Because there are too many shameful moments left behind when we are sick. His mood is very unstable. Every project he has handled has ended badly. This feeling of failure made him feel powerless. But I will comfort him. I said, "Charlie, none of this matters, keeping your health healthy is the key." Such a harmless sentence made him feel much better. Charlie's failure gave me a good reason to kick him out of the company. After that, our identities seemed to have been switched. I became the one who went to work to earn money, and he became the one who waited silently at home. At first, I was willing to coax him and give him some mild comfort. But later, the company was too busy and I didn't have the energy to deal with him anymore. So when he asked me to watch a movie again, I turned my head back. "Charlie, the company is so busy, is this all you have in mind? Can you please understand something?" He was angry, but he didn't dare show it in front of me. He is enduring. But once something like this happens, it will happen again. I can no longer control my temper towards Charlie. He became more and more cautious in front of me. One day, I saw a bottle of Valium on the bedside table. Only then did I realize that Charlie even had trouble falling asleep. I pretended not to see it and put the medicine back calmly. There is a new intern in the company who looks a lot like Charlie when he was young. On the third day of work, he confessed to me on WeChat and said he liked me. I have seen many people climbing up the ladder. But this is the first time I have seen someone like him. Even though she knew that the other person was married, she still dared to do this blatantly. I didn't respond to him. Because I want him to know the price of climbing up. I seldom call Charlie on my own initiative. He was very excited when he heard my voice. I told him to come to the company at noon and I wanted to have lunch with him. He didn't expect me to say that. He was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses. Okay. I'll come find you in a minute. Unfortunately, we didn't have that lunch. Because when Charlie arrived, what I saw was the intern putting his arm around my shoulders. I've never seen Charlie so angry. He had completely forgotten the education he had received since childhood. He grabbed the man by the collar and punched him again and again. I waited until the man was dying before I picked up the phone and called the police. Charlie was not taken away by the police. Because he was diagnosed with mental illness, he was put in a mental hospital. I didn't want to see him again. But there is one important thing I haven't done. I took the prepared divorce agreement and went to see Charlie. He was in the mental hospital and seemed like a different person. His eyes were dull and he had no interest in anything. The nurse said that he never said anything other than Amy. I told the nurse that I was Amy. Ask her to take me to see Charlie. When Charlie saw me, there was finally a change on his dull face. Emma was like a fish out of water. When she looked at me, her whole body suddenly became stiff. Then he approached me tentatively and said sorry. I wiped the tears from his face and whispered, "Charlie, do you love me?" This time he didn't hesitate and nodded affirmatively. I also smiled with satisfaction and said, "But if Charlie becomes like this, he will be a burden to Amy." Does Charlie want to drag Amy down? He was at a loss, not knowing how to react. After a while, he shook his head painfully. Then sign here so you won't be a burden to Amy anymore. Charlie picked up the pen with difficulty and wrote his name crookedly. Fortunately, it was signed and finally, Charlie seemed to have a moment of clarity. When I left, he pulled my clothes and choked up. Amy, will you come to see me again? I pushed Charlie away forcefully and said softly, look at the time, I'm very busy. When I walked out of the mental hospital, snowflakes were already falling from the sky. I reached out and tried to catch it. But the moment they touched, the snowflakes disappeared in an instant. I pulled my coat closer and walked forward. I think no matter what the future holds, I won't look back.